Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now today I'm going to be talking about the impact adding in more weapons to Star Wars Battlefront 2 will have on the game, or could have. More weapons will create a much more diverse use of the classes and actually the weapons used, of course. Now it would allow players to have more choices as to what they want to use and the attachments they actually desire to use on that certain weapon, and also what classes they actually want to pick based on certain scenarios. Now at this moment in time, each class, obviously there's four of them, the Assault, Heavy, Officer and Specialist, so each of them has four weapons each per match which they are able to use, with only actually three of these weapons being new when you start the game. Now the reason I say only three weapons new is because you simply start off with the default weapons, and then you have three weapons that are kind of universal. You can use them whenever you want to, like it doesn't matter which area you're playing on, as long as you've unlocked the gun first you can use it whenever you want to. So essentially only three new weapons. Now, I know adding more weapons isn't the easiest thing to do in terms of actually choosing them, because if you look at the First Order and Resistance, pretty much all of the guns they use are already actually in the game right now. So the Separatists and Clones, again, they didn't really have a huge amount of weaponry in their arsenal. The Republic used quite a few actually, but the Separatists was quite minimal. They all pretty much had the same weapons. So they're pretty much all in here too, whereas the Empire and Rebels, if you look at actually Battlefront 2015, we had quite a lot of weapons there, but they kind of heavily relied on weapons used by bounty hunters. If you look at the DT-12 and the EE-3, they were respectively used by Greedo and Boba Fett. So, they relied heavily on bounty hunters and other such characters to actually add more weapons to the game, and obviously there are definitely still more options for other factions, but I'll be covering those in a separate video. So the example I will use isn't obviously going to be just one whole thing. There's much more weapon choices that they can do, but it's just an example. So adding in new weapons will actually attract more players back to the game as well. This was in order to complete the challenges, in order to unlock the gun, and then actually use it. So as I stated earlier on in the video, it adds variation, and who knows, maybe even it changes the meta of the class as well. Because if you look at the Heavy, for example, most people will probably use the TL50, especially in certain situations, but if they add in a new weapon, the TL50 could, essentially almost become redundant in that scenario because of the new weapon that gets added in. So it can change the way that actually the classes are played. So if you look at the Heavy class, for example, right now pretty much all of the heavy weapons are pretty much a fast firing weapon with a fairly small damage per hit than any other weapon in the game, with the exception of the FWME-10K, of course. That is the slowest firing weapon in the class, I believe, and it's got a bit of a higher damage per blaster bolt anyway. So in comparison to the T21, however, it is fairly fast firing, because the T21 was obviously a gun used in Battlefront 2015, and we see it used by stormtroopers commonly in Tatooine in New Hope and on Scarif in Rogue One. And no doubt there are going to be plenty of other times, but these were the two times I could think of, in the time I actually thought about this. So if you remember back to the days of Battlefront 2015, the T21 was a pretty damn slow firing weapon. However, it had a pretty high damage per blaster bolt that actually hit. So if they added this into a game, it could introduce and even change player styles used for that class. Heavies normally kind of tend to push up a little bit more because they're low DPS, but low damage per shot anyway, and they tend to push up instead of falling back. However, if they added in the T21 that's got a high damage per shot and it's got a low fire rate, then actually maybe they'll hang back a little bit more and try and essentially snipe with it. Now, before you say anything, I know DPS is damage per second, but I'm using the phrase damage per shot because if you look at the DPS, will all vary, of course, with each weapon. But if you look at the DLT-19, for example, it's a massively quick weapon in terms of actual fire rate, but each little shot will be relatively low damage, so that's kind of what I'm getting to if anyone was confused by that. So as I said, this could change the playstyle of each class, for example, and this is just a small example what adding new weapons could actually do for the game. And I know this probably sounded like a load of waffle to some of you, but adding in new weapons provides players with more choices, it changes the way the game is played, and instead of just using the same weapons all the time, it will just make the game more enjoyable for other players, because they get the chance to create their own ways of using the weapons, instead of just playing the same all the time. And also, they could look at weapon guides and how to best utilize each new weapon as well, because it just provides more content creation as well as just for the actual player base as well. So not only that, but for the players like myself who have had all of the trooper weapons, all star cards maxed out, and all of the attachments for many months now, it will give us finally a bit more sense of progression, because for me, I've had all of these things since probably about May, June 2018, so a very long time now, 8 to 9 months now. So it'll give me a sense of progression, which is great, and I think adding in more weapons will do a great thing for the game. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments, and tell me what weapons you want to see added into the game. Thank you very much for watching, and may the force be with you always.